Okay, I'm hitting the go live portion and then we can get started. And then I will start this webinar on our Zoom end, and then we'll see if Dr. Scribner is in the crowd with us. Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to let folks just kind of tune in to Zoom and Facebook and get logged on. And then Dr. Scribner will be joining us here very shortly, and we'll get him all set up and we'll begin our Chamber Conexión webinar for today. Good afternoon, everybody. We'll get started here shortly. I see Dr. Scribner has logged in. So Dr. Scribner, if you want to allow video and unmute yourself, we can definitely get started here. Let's see, I just asked you to unmute, Dr. Scribner. There we go.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
We are so excited to have both you and Jennifer here today with us with the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We are kicking gears back in to get our Chamber Conexión webinar series back up and running. We were on pause for a little bit while we went ahead and planned and executed our phenomenal 47th annual award celebration a few weeks ago. So we're kind of just kicking back into gear now. And we're so excited to have, you, Dr. Scribner, the Fort Worth ISD Superintendent. And then we have Jennifer Pettis here with us, who is the Director of Family Communications with the Fort Worth Independent School District. And I know that we have a really incredible topic that we're going to be touching on today with the TRE and our upcoming election. It is election season, y'all, so please do go out and vote. It does make a difference. So Jennifer, I want to kind of let you and Dr. Scribner take it away. Dr. Scribner, I know you have a presentation for us on the TRE, and you do have the screen enabling, so you're able to share screen with your presentation. And we're just going to kind of jump right into it, and we'll close out with a Q&A session.
Well, thank you, Serena. Yes, my name is Jennifer Bettis. I'm the Director of Family Communications. Dr. Scribner and I have been taking this presentation on the road to try to get the word out. We are going to have a Q&A session after this event, so please post your questions in the chat. Or in Facebook, if you're watching through the Facebook link. We will be monitoring those and answering questions after the presentation. So Dr. Scribner, I'll toss it back to you.
Well, thank you very much, Jennifer, and thank you to the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for this opportunity to provide an informational presentation on the voter approval tax rate election. This is a tax rate election similar to the elections that have already been passed in many of our surrounding suburban districts. In fact, some of the larger districts in Tarrant County, in addition to Fort Worth, are also going for the same tax rate election. So we are not unusual in this request. In fact, very similar to all of those districts who have already done so, and a few more that I'll mention shortly who are also joining us in this effort. As you know, Election Day is less than 2 weeks away on November the 3rd. Early voting kicked off last week and is open today all the way through October the 30th. So early voting through October the 30th, and November the 3rd obviously is Election Day. This is a high turnout election. We have many important things on the ballot. And one of those is consideration of our students in our schools. So let me get to the next. So if I were to, oh, I know why, because I'm at the end of the presentation. Sorry about that. So we all know that we have been going through an unprecedented journey. In fact, it was over 7 months ago on March the 6th that our students were for the last time in what we would consider traditional school day with 80,000 of our students in person. That hasn't happened for over 7 months. We know that March the 6th, the last day that we had in-person instruction for all of our students, was the day before spring break last semester. During spring break, several of us were in contact with our public health officials. We decided to continue the spring break for an additional week, but then become virtual learning soon thereafter. That period of time was originally thought to extend for 2 weeks, and then it was indefinite. And then, as you know, Governor Abbott shut down public schools in Texas for the remainder of the school year. We pivoted very quickly to a fully virtual environment. It was new for all of us. We had first-year teachers, but we also had 20 and 30-year teachers who quickly became first-year teachers again for the first time in their careers, conducting virtual learning from their homes. We were actually kind of disappointed that we were not able to take the STAR test last spring. We really were on an upward trajectory, made several changes. Our academics team saw some great increases. We'll talk about those in a moment. And of all the large urban districts, I think our upward trajectory really was the steepest, and we want to continue to climb. We have to remember where we started. In 2017, the first implementation of the A through F system in Texas, Fort Worth and many other schools, large urbans, didn't fare so well. We actually started with a 67. However, after 1 year, we saw an 8-point increase, which was recognized by the commissioner of TEA as among the top 2 large urban increases across the state. From 18 to 19, we saw almost a 5% increase. In fact, we missed becoming a letter grade B school district in 2019 by 1/10 of 1 percentage point. We were very confident in 2020 we would have been a letter grade B, but that's not the goal. The goal is to move on and become a letter grade A school district. Last year, we were pleased and we expected that continued increase because our high school end of course assessments saw a higher level of passing rates in English, algebra, and biology. Our benchmark testing across the district for the mid-year saw increased student performance at all subjects, at all grade levels, elementary, middle, and high school. And then we take a nationally normed test, the MAP assessment, which also saw significantly more students exceeding the projected growth 1 year to the next. So we're pleased and want to continue that trend. 2020 for all of us, though, has been a year like no other. Those seniors Our hearts go out to them. They were unable to have a prom, unable to have a graduation. They did have a virtual graduation. And then ultimately, in the middle of June, we were able to arrange an outdoor voluntary graduation celebration. But the school year in 2020 ended like no other had before and began like no other had before. Let's take a quick look at that. The TEA, the Texas Education Agency, provided us with the reopening framework. They authorized superintendents across the state to choose a transition plan that included the first 4 weeks of virtual learning. We chose to implement the 4 weeks virtual at the outset, like most other districts in Texas. And the board, actually, the Board of Trustees had the option of continuing that for 4 weeks. Let's take a look at what happened. Well, the calendar committee originally had set August 17th as the first day of school. Mid-July, our board voted to postpone the first day of school from August 17th to September the 8th. That was the day after Labor Day. And on that Tuesday, our 4-week clock began. And we did that because we expected and we saw a spike in coronavirus cases as a result of the 3-day holiday weekend, Labor Day. So in those first 4 weeks, we actually saw a dramatic improvement in virtual instruction. We learned a lot last spring. It was bumpy when we quickly pivoted within a couple-week period, but we learned from our experiences in the spring. We planned a great deal in the summer, and virtual instruction for the month of September, actually, we received much more positive feedback than negative. In fact, in my own home, our 7th grader experienced that, and several of our trustees their children also experienced the same thing. Mid-September, we had 2 meetings, one on the 15th and the second on the 22nd. These were marathon meetings. There was a great deal of passion on both sides of this issue. Large percentage of our parents wanted in-person instruction immediately. Large percentage of our parents wanted virtual for as long as possible, and great passion, and teachers also, great passion on both sides of this issue. Ultimately, the September 22nd board meeting lasted until September 23rd, almost 4 in the morning. That was not unusual. We saw that in many, many urban settings. I serve on the Council of Great City Schools Superintendent Committee. So districts such as Dallas and Houston and Chicago and Miami and New York and LA, they all saw a very similar challenge. These were difficult decisions to make by our elected officials, but Fort Worth ISD chose a phased-in approach. On October the 5th, we welcomed back our pre-K students, kindergarten and first graders, basically anyone who is new to a school building, to a new school building, 6th graders, for example, at the middle school, 9th graders at the high school. Of course, our special education students. Prior to COVID, we realigned our attendance patterns where we have pyramids of 1 high school, 2 middle schools, and half a dozen or so elementaries. In 4 of those school communities, we have 13 across our district, 209 square mile district. They have a 6th grade center. So in those communities, 7th graders also began on October the 5th. Last week on the 13th, we welcomed 2 more grade levels at the elementary, all 7th graders at the middle and 10th graders at high school. And then this week, all students have the option to return to in-person instruction across the district. Now, our parents were polled and they were allowed choice. And about half of our parents have chosen in-person, and the remainder, the other half, chose to continue virtually. So we're monitoring that as we go through every 6-week grading period. How has this impacted our budget? Well, we already had a great initiative, an administration prior to mine, a board prior to our current board, invested heavily in the one-to-one dig-in program, which provided a computer device, a Chromebook to every student grades 6 through 12, and corresponding hotspots. That investment was about $13 million, and that took place over a period of time. Well, as a result of COVID, we actually doubled that amount just in the last few months. An additional $13 million investment, taking us to 63,000 devices and correspondingly 21,000 hotspots, because not every area of our district has robust and reliable Wi-Fi. We do see a disparity in terms of broadband access. Some parts of our city where we have more affluent community, they have Wi-Fi towers that are put up by the private companies, and in other parts of town we don't have that. So what we are doing is providing those 21,000 hotspots to our community. We'll talk about that in a moment as well. But please note that this $26 million will be a recurring cost. First, our goal is to get to 80,000 devices so that every student in Fort Worth ISD has a device. Now, of course, the kindergartners, the first, second graders, they would have an age-appropriate tablet. But the upper grades, the intermediate grades, 3rd through 5th, the middle schools, the high schools, we'd be providing those students with a Chromebook, and those need to be refreshed. The average lifespan is about 3 years. In the backpack of a middle schooler, sometimes that lifespan is shortened. So that 80,000 devices would have to be, a third of them would have to be refreshed every year, and that will be a continuing cost. But it's not a cost, it's an investment. Our students are rich in diversity. Yes, 85% of our students come from homes that are economically disadvantaged, but I've always said our students are not problems to be solved, they're assets to be invested in. And that's the one beautiful thing about this community. I feel very grateful in Fort Worth that we understand that education and the economy are inextricably linked. This effort, and thank you to Annette, has been endorsed not only by the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber, but also by the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce and the Fort Worth Metropolitan Black Chamber. All three chambers recognize the responsibility and the reasonable proposal that we've put forward. We think it's an extremely reasonable proposal. There are 21 districts in Tarrant County. We are the largest district in Tarrant County. We are the most diverse district in Tarrant County. And as I stated earlier, 85% of our students live at or below the federal poverty line, designated economically disadvantaged. When you think about that and realize that currently without a TRE, we fall in the 19th position, it's curious. Our surrounding districts, our suburban districts, their voters have already approved this. I believe that if we were to see this effort be voted on in a positive manner, we would see a greater and more effective investment in our students. And what we're asking for really is not outrageous. If it were to pass, we would simply move from the 19th place up to the 13th place, to the middle of the pack, not to the top of this list of 21, not to the top 10, not to the top half, but to the 13th position. That would allow us to invest in our students in a greater fashion. Let's talk about what that would mean. Well, personally, and for all of those who are homeowners, we recognize that there would be a mild increase in the property tax. The average value of a home in Fort Worth ISD is $167,000. For that homeowner, he or she would see a $13 a month average increase. So if we doubled that and said, let's talk about a $330,000 home, that would be a $26 a month increase to the property tax. That's less than $1 a day. And let's talk about that dollar. For every dollar that's raised locally, the state will reward the local district's effort with an additional 50 cents on every dollar that's invested. And why is that? Well, the current formula indicates that all students across the state receive more or less the same per pupil expenditure from the state. But in property wealthy districts, like the large urbans with the commercial and tall buildings, as our values increase, the state contribution actually decreases. So by passing this tax ratification election, we would see our contribution increase. Those dollars that currently are going to Austin would return to Fort Worth to our students. And of course, any individual who is 65 years or over would see no impact. They would have no increase in their property tax. What would happen and what does that 50 cents on the dollar look like? Well, if the tax rate were to be successful, much like it has been in suburban districts across Tarrant County, which results in why we're 19th out of 21, we would see $44 million increase. The state would match that 50 cents on the dollar and see an additional $22 million for a $66 million additional revenue for our students this year and every year moving forward under the current law. Where would those dollars go? Well, we believe in three very important buckets. First, teacher compensation. The second, safety, health, and security. And the third, connectivity and devices. Let's talk about each of these. First, teacher compensation. Well, Fort Worth ISD recruits teachers from across the nation, across the state of Texas, but primarily from here in North Texas. If we look, these are the districts that serve the Metroplex, the 7.5 million people here in North Texas. And Fort Worth ISD, when you look at beginning teacher salaries, we fall in the 24th position. We want to be competitive. We want to recruit new teachers. We want to retain our best existing teachers. We don't want them jumping ship to another district for more money. And we think that by passing the TRE, the first thing we would invest in is an overall teacher compensation improvement. But it's not just about funding the salary schedule. Yes, we want to see increased pay. Yes, we want to recruit teachers. However, most importantly, we want to incentivize, provide incentives, outcome-based incentives, so that our best teachers choose to work with our students with the greatest need. If we can incentivize individual teachers, if we can incentivize our support staff, our specialists, our librarians, our counselors, the entire school community, we can see schools really improving. In fact, we've seen that in other places. The state actually encourages that through their teacher incentive allotment. And we believe based on that framework, we could add these dollars and really accelerate that investment and hire the best and keep the best teachers and incentivize those teachers to work with our students in the greatest need. The second bucket, safety, health, and security. Well, before COVID, when we talked about safety, health, and security, we were talking about preventing violence, school shootings. In fact, prior to the shutdown of the airlines, we had a group of our team who were heading to Broward County, Florida, to see my colleague, Bob Runcie, and his response to a terrible tragedy, a school shooting there in Broward County. They invested in technologies, in detection devices, in cameras, in automatic locking doors, in those dividers on desks. Excuse me, and all of those investments towards school safety. We'll talk about the PPE and the coronavirus response in just a moment. Social and emotional service is also a portion of safety and security. Our students, they know who their classmates are who are in crisis, and we want to make sure that we are providing them with the resources and services that they need, hiring culturally competent individuals to connect with those students. Many school shootings, unfortunately, happen as a result of someone who either attends that school, is familiar with the school. And if we can get into students' homes and interact with families, grandparents, provide them the services they need, or a different placement, that clearly, we know that helps as well. As I was saying earlier, health and safety also addresses the coronavirus response, PPE, personal protective equipment, the fogging machines, hand sanitizer, disinfectant, those dividers, as I was saying, on desks, plexiglass, all of that. I don't see us relaxing this moving forward and coming back to schools that where cleanliness and safety are not a high priority. I think this is going to stay with us for a while, as will the third bucket, connectivity and devices, technology. Connectivity really is a basic utility now in our families, much like when you need water or electricity or gas in your homes, you also need reliable and robust Wi-Fi. We believe that this also will help not only our students but the adults. Well over 2/3 of the jobs that require application. It's not like the old days when you walked into the building, filled out a sheet of paper, and got a phone call tomorrow for an interview. Those applications now are happening online. So this will not only help our students, but our parents. And as I talked to you earlier about where those zip codes are, we know where they are. This is a map of Fort Worth ISD. We have about a half a dozen zip codes where over one third of the families who have children in the homes with our students in them, do not have broadband internet access. In fact, in 2 of those zip codes in East Fort Worth, it's over 50%. East Fort Worth, Southeast Fort Worth, and some portions of South Fort Worth. We believe investing in our students with connectivity, not only with the devices, but with the technological infrastructure to connect those devices to internet access is essential for learning in the world moving forward. In fact, I envision once we've conquered this pandemic, in-person instruction continuing, for example, from 8 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon, but after school learning can happen in person, but can also very easily happen virtually now that we are continuing to master online instruction with after school, a small group or individual instruction, evenings and Saturdays. So again, we believe this is a responsible recommendation, taking us to the middle of the pack, not to the top of the 21 districts with regard to school tax rate or investment in our students, merely taking us from the 19th position to the 13th position. We're not the only school district in Tarrant County who's asking for this. Arlington ISD next door is asking for exactly the same tax ratification election. Northwest ISD also the same exact TRE. And then, as you know, Dallas ISD passed their tax ratification election last year and are implementing many of the same initiatives that we care about. So again, a reminder, early voting has begun. Don't stop at the top of the ballot. This is a very important and large turnout ballot with the presidential race, with US Senate race, with state house races, as well as the judges. But we encourage our community to consider our students and go all the way to the bottom of the ballot and consider us for the tax rate election. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Jennifer. If there are any questions, comments, or suggestions, I'd be happy to entertain them at this time.
Still waiting for some comments to roll in, but please post them in the chat or on Facebook. I do have a couple of questions for you. Can you talk a little bit about the percentage each one of the buckets, the teacher compensation, the safety and security, and the technology? What are we looking at percentage-wise?
Well, great. Well, outside of the hard industry, we are in the people business, much like I'm sure the budget of the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is primarily people, salaries and benefits. Same thing in schools. In fact, large urban districts spend about 85% of our budget on people. The other 15% is the maintenance of the facilities, is transportation, food services, and all of that. So we would suspect that these 3 buckets would be reflect about the same thing. Overwhelmingly, the majority would go to incentivizing our best teachers to serve our students in the greatest need. The smaller buckets probably, if that were 50%, the others would be, a quarter each to 25 and 25 initially. The health and safety would be probably an upfront investment. I see technology really being a continuing cost because we're going to continue to have to refresh those devices. But primarily, what we want to do is get because the research shows us by getting the highest quality teachers, that has the biggest impact on student achievement. The teacher in the classroom, followed closely second by quality, high quality principal. High quality principals hire high quality teachers. So these investments would land at the school sites, at our 143 schools.
Thank you. And how soon, if the TRE passes, how soon would those funds be available to Fort Worth ISD?
Well, a TRE is different than a bond. Many people ask me, hey, I see them at Starbucks and they say, good luck on your bond. And I don't correct them, but this is not a bond. A bond is a situation in which the school district actually is authorized to sell those bonds to Wall Street and then get cash to build for construction, to build our new elementary school, to refresh our high schools for 21st century learning. This actually, these dollars would be available immediately. So if this were to pass on November the 3rd, we could access these dollars immediately, spend them this year and every year moving forward under the current law. Obviously, with regard to teacher compensation and incentives, we would want to work collaboratively with our teacher organizations so that we really got the best bang for the buck and the best leverage on improving student outcomes with these dollars.
And thanks for pointing that out about working collaboratively, because I know that's important, especially to our teachers and those at our campus level. One other question, Dr. Scribner, can you talk a little bit more about one-to-one and how we could potentially use it to bridge the gap?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I saw a study on my desk earlier this morning talking about the impact of COVID learning loss and the student achievement drop that is being seen nationally. It was a 900 school study across the nation in big cities, much like Fort Worth. Now we're the 11th or 12th largest city in the country. But technology is going to need to be part of that. And what I shared earlier, the Khan Academy is a great example of a technology that really works. We need to take those kinds of ideas to scale. Again, once we've conquered the pandemic, in-person instruction hopefully will return to a sense of normalcy that we recognize. However, we're never going back to the pre-COVID way of doing things. Technology will be there for us, not only while students are in class, to access the amazing amount of research and information that's available to us on the web, but also in the after school, evening, and Saturday, small group instruction. Now we can really target those students, what their academic needs are, and provide programming, individualized programming guided by a teacher, either in person or virtually, to catch them up to speed.
Thank you. And with that, I'll share a comment that we received in the chat from Adrian Galvan. Thank you, Superintendent Scribner, for your leadership. Our family is 100% in favor of the TRE to help the district continue investing in our students. We will get the word out to vote yes. So
thank you. And Jennifer, maybe if you could also coordinate, we have two short videos, one in English, one in Spanish, that we could share with our community, as well as this presentation as well.
Absolutely. I do want to pipe in here. One of the mottos that our Hispanic Chamber has really focused on and highlighted this year, through the highs and lows of COVID-19 and just everything going on with families and kids, is we're really trying to focus on the silver lining. So we've seen a lot of business leaders especially pivot their way of doing business and try to find the little bit of good in all of the bad. So I want to propose a question to both you, Jennifer, and Dr. Scribner, in terms of what silver lining have you personally or professionally seen, through this year and moving forward with, trying to get this TRE approved?
Well, two things quickly on the personal side: more time with family. When we were all on the stay-at-home order, that really resulted in many more family dinners and much more connection. I think being grounded there is a very, very important thing. Professionally, though, I would say the biggest silver lining for me is that people recognize the importance of public schools. Every conversation about reopening the economy, about getting back to normalcy, included, and we got to get these kids back in school, i.e. schools are important. That's one of the best things about Fort Worth. I think our leaders understand that education and the economy are in fact inextricably linked. And I think, you know, the understanding that we are a major employer, I think the second or third largest employer in Tarrant County. We are a buyer of goods and services, and we are investing in our community's most important resources. It's students who are our future workforce and our future leaders in Fort Worth and the region.
Yeah, and to kind of add to that, one of the things that I've seen is the silver lining is just the community support around families and families who have needed a little extra help, especially when it comes to food. There have been so many small businesses, restaurants, and then working with Tarrant Area Food Bank that have really stepped up and given so much of themselves and helped coordinate so many events to provide extra services to help fill in the gap for some of those families in most need.
I love it. Well, I know you guys do an incredible job. You know, your job is not easy, of course, but this is a very well presentation on the TRE, and I'm so glad that you both were able to join us today to share this with our chamber members, and this will be accessible down the road, especially leading up to the vote. So hopefully, you know, everybody gets out there and votes. If you guys that are tuning in on Facebook or Zoom, if you have any questions at all, please know that the Hispanic Chamber is here for you. We are a resource, and we do work with Fort Worth ISD very closely as well. So if you have any questions that, you know, you just need to find the right point of contact, or you just need an answer quick, the chamber can be that middleman for you, and we can definitely help in any way that we can. So just continue to, you know, support our Fort Worth community in Tarrant County. We have an incredible city. I am still new to this city. I'm not even a year living here. So I'm in complete awe of our city leaders and the jobs that you all have to do in order to keep everybody safe and, you know, well thought of. So Dr. Scribner and Jennifer, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We appreciate it, and we'll definitely get those videos and any resources out to our chamber members.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Serena.
Thank you all. Have a good one.
Thank you too.
Bye-bye.